Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler, all owned by one company, the fourth largest automaker on Earth. People called it unstoppable, but last year this company lost $26 billion. The CEO got pushed out. A 60-year-old Jeep factory went dark. And if you own a Jeep, listen up. They told owners to park outside because it might catch fire. This isn't one disaster. It's 5, all connected. The merger that was supposed to conquer the world. To understand how Stellantis fell apart, you first have to understand how it was built. And the story starts with two companies that, on paper, had nothing in common. On one side, you had Fiat Chrysler automobiles. That's the American side of the family. Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler. Legendary names, but by the late 2000s, a company that felt like it was stuck in the past. Aging factories. A lineup that leaned hard on trucks and SUVs while the rest of the industry was racing toward electrification. On the other side, you had PSA Group. That's the French side. Peugeot, Citroën, Opel, Vauxhall. A company known in Europe for being ruthlessly efficient. Lean factories, tight margins, and a CEO named Carlos Tavares, who had a reputation as one of the sharpest cost cutters in the entire auto industry. In January of 2021, these two companies merged. And just like that, Stellantis was born. 14 brands, operations on nearly every continent. On paper, this was supposed to be the ultimate power move. Combine American muscle and scale with European efficiency and discipline, and you get an automaker that can outcompete Toyota, outcost Volkswagen, and outmaneuver Tesla in the EV race that was just getting started. Carlos Tavares took the wheel as CEO of this new giant, and for the first couple of years, it actually looked like the plan was working. Stellantis was one of the most profitable automakers on the planet. In 2023 alone, the company pulled in over 18 billion euros in profit. That's not a typo. 18 billion. Tavares was being called a genius. Wall Street loved him. He was compared to legendary turnaround guys in the industry, the kind of executive who could walk into a mess and squeeze profit out of it through sheer discipline. His master plan was something called Dare Forward 2030, a roadmap built around aggressive electrification, all 14 brands pushing toward electric vehicles at the same time, and margins that would rival luxury automakers. Ambitious doesn't even cover it. This was Stellantis betting the entire company on speed. Speed to electrify, speed to cut costs, speed to hit targets. Nobody else in Detroit was even attempting. And here's the thing about betting everything on speed. It works right up until it doesn't, because underneath all those record profits, Tavares was making decisions that would take less than 2 years to come back and nearly sink the entire company. The man who broke it. If you want to understand exactly where things went wrong, you need to understand how Carlos Tavares actually ran this company, because his style wasn't just aggressive. Multiple people close to the situation later described it as flat-out arrogant. That's not our word. That's the word Tavares himself used, standing on stage at an investor event in June of 2024, when he admitted the company had made arrogant mistakes in its U.S. operations. Here's what those mistakes actually looked like on the ground. Starting in 2023, Stellantis dealers across the country started noticing something strange. Their lots were overflowing. Jeeps and Rams that should have been selling in weeks were sitting for months. Why? Because Tavares had prioritized price and profit margin over actually moving inventory. Instead of cutting prices to match what customers were willing to pay, Stellantis kept sticker prices high and just kept shipping more cars to dealers, whether they could sell them or not. Think about what that actually means for the person running a dealership. You've got a lot full of unsold Jeep Grand Cherokees. You're paying interest on that inventory every single month. Customers are walking onto your lot, seeing prices that don't match the market, and walking right back out to a Toyota or Honda dealer down the street. This wasn't a few dealers complaining. This became a full-blown revolt. In late 2024, Stellantis dealers across the country sent a letter directly to Tavares. Dealers who had spent decades selling Jeeps and Rams and Chryslers, telling their own manufacturer, in writing, that leadership decisions were putting their businesses at risk. When your own sales network is sending you formal complaints, that's not a messaging problem. That's a 5-alarm fire. And the sales numbers backed up exactly what dealers were screaming about. Stellantis U.S. sales dropped 15% in 2024 alone, falling from about 1.52 million vehicles to just 1.3 million. Jeep, the single most important brand in the entire portfolio, saw sales fall 9%. The Grand Cherokee, historically one of the best-selling SUVs in America, dropped 12%. To put that in perspective, this was happening while the overall U.S. auto market was healthy. Other manufacturers were growing. Stellantis was shrinking and shrinking fast, entirely because of decisions made at the very top. The stock market noticed immediately. Stellantis shares fell 43% in 2024. Compare that to General Motors, which was up 55% the same year. Ford was down, but nowhere close to that. Stellantis was in a category of its own, and not the good kind. By December of 2024, the board had seen enough. Carlos Tavares, the man once praised as a turnaround genius, was forced out. The company called it a resignation. Reports from inside the company told a different story. The board had essentially fired him, unanimously, fed up with his aggressive targets, his combative relationship with dealers, suppliers, and unions, and a leadership style multiple sources described as simply untenable. His total pay package the year before had been $39.5 million, the highest of any CEO in Detroit. He left the building the same week. And here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. Tavares didn't build a bad company. He built a company optimized entirely for short-term profit at the expense of literally everyone downstream, the dealers, the factory workers, and eventually the customers themselves. When you run a company like that for long enough, the bill comes due. And in Stellantis' case, that bill was just getting started. The factory that went dark. If you want to see the human cost of these decisions, you don't need to look at a spreadsheet. You need to look at a small town in northern Illinois called Belvidere. For 58 years, the Belvidere assembly plant built cars for this company and its predecessors. At its peak, this plant employed thousands of people and built the Jeep Cherokee, one of the most popular SUVs in America. Belvidere wasn't just a factory, it was the economic heartbeat of an entire town. Restaurants, grocery stores, entire families for generations, all tied to that plant. In December of 2022, Stellantis announced it was idling Belvidere, not pausing production for a retool, idling it indefinitely. By February 2023, more than 1,350 workers had lost their jobs. Just like that, one of the biggest employers in the region went dark. Restaurants near the plant started closing. Food pantry usage in the town went up. This is what an arrogant cost-cutting strategy actually looks like when it lands on real people instead of a boardroom slide. Later that year, during the historic 2023 UAW strike against all three Detroit automakers, the union extracted a hard-fought promise from Stellantis. Reopen Belvidere, build a new battery plant alongside it, invest $1.5 billion to retool the factory for an all-new mid-size truck. On paper, it looked like a win, a promise in writing, in a contract. But here's where it gets even messier. Over the following 2 years, the union accused Stellantis of quietly walking that promise back. Delays, vague timelines, product commitments that kept shifting. UAW leadership went as far as threatening strike action specifically over Belvidere, accusing the company of dragging its feet on a legally binding agreement. Meanwhile, workers in the town were left in limbo, some picking up temporary jobs, some laid off multiple times as the company trickled out small batches of parts plant layoffs, 80 jobs here, 120 jobs there, each one a fresh gut punch to a community that had already been waiting years. This is the part of the Stellantis story that never makes the stock market headlines. Behind every cost optimization slide in an investor presentation, there's a town like Belvidere. There's a family that's been building Jeeps for 3 generations, suddenly wondering if the plant they grew up around is ever coming back. And this pattern, promising big, then quietly pulling back, is going to show up again later in this story. Keep that in mind, because it becomes a theme. Now, if you've made it this far, you clearly care about what's actually happening behind the headlines in the car world, And that's exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Hit that like button, subscribe to MotorZen, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. It genuinely helps us keep making videos like this one. Drop a comment too. I want to know if you've ever owned a Jeep, a Ram, or a Chrysler, and what your experience has actually been like. Okay, let's keep going, because it's about to get worse. When the Jeep started catching fire. Every car company deals with recalls. That's just the nature of building something as complicated as a modern vehicle. But what happened to Jeep's plug-in hybrid lineup over the past 2 years goes well beyond normal wear and tear on a brand's reputation. It starts with the Jeep Wrangler 4xe and the Grand Cherokee 4xe. These weren't side projects. The Wrangler 4xe had become the best-selling plug-in hybrid in the entire United States. It proved electrification could actually work for a brand like Jeep without alienating the loyal off-road crowd that built the brand in the first place. This was Stellantis' biggest electrification success story, and Jeep leaned on it hard in every piece of marketing. Then the fires started. In September of 2024, Stellantis recalled nearly 194,000 of these plug-in hybrids after 13 reported fires, some of them happening while the vehicles were parked and completely turned off. The company told owners to stop charging their vehicles and to park away from structures until a fix arrived. Imagine buying a $60,000 Jeep and being told by the manufacturer to keep it away from your own house. A software fix went out. Stellantis said the issue was resolved. It wasn't. In November of 2025, Stellantis issued another recall. This time it covered more than 320,000 vehicles worldwide, the same Wrangler 4xe and Grand Cherokee 4xe models, after 19 additional fires were reported, including fires in vehicles that had already gone through the earlier recall repair. 19 fires, 1 injury. The company again told owners to avoid charging and to park outdoors. This wasn't a one-time defect anymore. This was now the third recall since 2023 tied to the exact same battery system, and the earlier fixes clearly hadn't solved the underlying problem. Then, almost without warning, Stellantis pulled the plug entirely. The Wrangler 4xe and Grand Cherokee 4xe quietly vanished from Jeep's website. No electric or hybrid listing. No way to order one. Dealers were placed under stop sale orders, meaning they were legally barred from selling the vehicles sitting on their lots. The Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, the only plug-in hybrid minivan sold in America, got cut too. Stellantis didn't hold a press conference to explain any of this. The flagship electrification success story of the entire company just disappeared from the lineup, folded quietly into the 2026 model year changes. And it wasn't only the 4xe models causing headaches. Owners across multiple Jeep models started posting videos online showing cheap-feeling interior trim, rust forming on vehicles barely 2 years old, and engines with oil consumption and timing chain problems severe enough to become recurring complaints in owner forums. Jeep, a brand built on toughness and reliability as its entire identity, started showing up near the bottom of major reliability surveys. For a brand whose entire marketing pitch is built for anything, that's about as damaging as bad press gets. This is the same pattern from Belvedere, just wearing a different uniform. Promise something big, roll it out with confidence, then quietly walk it back once reality catches up. Except this time, the thing being walked back wasn't a factory reopening. It was the safety of the vehicles sitting in customers' driveways. The $26 billion bill. Now let's talk about the number that made all of this impossible to ignore. In February of 2026, Stellantis reported its full year 2025 financial results. Net loss of $26.3 billion, the largest loss in the company's history, and its first annual loss since Stellantis was created back in 2021. Let that number breathe for a second. $26 billion in a single year. That's not a rounding error, that's not a rough quarter. That's a company admitting in the clearest way a business can that its entire strategy needed to be torn up. Where did that number even come from? Nearly $30 billion in what the company called unusual charges, tied almost entirely to its aggressive electric vehicle push. Remember Dare Forward 2030? The plan built around going all in on EVs across all 14 brands at the same pace, on the same timeline? Stellantis had spent billions engineering dedicated electric platforms, tooling up factories, and building out an electric future the company assumed customers were ready for. They weren't. The numbers make it painfully clear. The all-electric Jeep Wagoneer S sold just under 11,000 units. In that same period, the gas-powered Grand Cherokee sold roughly 210,000. That's not a gap. That's an entirely different universe of demand. Customers wanted the trucks, the SUVs, and the V8s that Stellantis brands have always been known for, and the company had bet the farm on the opposite. So new CEO Antonio Filosa, who took over in the summer of 2025 after Tavares' exit, made a decision that would have been unthinkable just 2 years earlier. Stellantis started walking back its EV commitments and reintroducing gas and diesel power across its lineup. The redesigned Ram 1500, which had launched without a V8 option at all, got its Hemi engine back for 2026. The Dodge Charger, redesigned as an electric-first muscle car, added a turbocharged gas engine option. The planned all-electric Ram 1500 got canceled outright. This is a company publicly admitting it moved too far, too fast, in a direction customers weren't asking for, and now has to spend billions more to reverse course. And the fallout landed hardest on one brand in particular: Chrysler. Chrysler is the name that's literally in the DNA of this company, the brand that gave the original Chrysler Corporation its identity for 100 years. Today, Chrysler survives in the United States on exactly one vehicle: the Pacifica minivan. That's it. No sedans, no SUVs, nothing else. Following the $26 billion loss, Stellantis quietly reorganized its brands into tiers, and Chrysler landed in the bottom tier alongside a Dodge lineup that had just killed off its V8 Charger and Challenger muscle cars entirely. Chrysler didn't even get a mention during the earnings call that announced these results. The brand that put the Chrysler in Chrysler Stellantis wasn't important enough to bring up. To make matters even more chaotic, Chrysler's own CEO stepped down just weeks after these results came out, handing control of the brand over to the guy already running Dodge. One executive, 2 struggling brands, and a company still trying to figure out which of its 14 names are actually worth keeping. What speed actually costs. So let's go back to where we started. 14 brands. One company built to conquer the world through scale and speed. For a couple of years, it actually looked unstoppable, pulling in 18 billion euros of profit and getting praised as the sharpest operation in Detroit. But here's the uncomfortable truth this whole story keeps circling back to. None of these disasters happened by accident, and none of them happened in isolation. The dealer inventory crisis, the Belvedere shutdown, and the broken promises to Illinois workers. The Jeep 4xe fires and the recalls that kept coming back, the $26 billion loss, and Chrysler getting reduced to a single minivan. Every single one of these traces back to the exact same root cause. A company that moved faster than its supply chain, faster than its quality control, faster than its own dealer network, and faster than actual customer demand could support. Stellantis didn't build this mess out of malice. It built it out of overconfidence. A belief that scale alone, 14 brands under one roof, could paper over decisions that ignored the people actually building, selling, and driving these cars. And when speed outruns discipline for long enough, in any industry, the bill always eventually comes due, no matter how many famous names are on your badge. This doesn't mean Stellantis disappears tomorrow. The company actually returned to profitability in the first half of 2026, with Ram and Jeep leading a real recovery in North America, and demand for the returning Hemi V8 reportedly outpacing what the factories can even build. Antonio Filosa's turnaround plan is showing early signs of life, but the era where Stellantis looked like an unstoppable global superpower, where 14 brands under one roof was treated as a guaranteed advantage instead of 14 separate problems waiting to happen, that era is over. What's left is a company trying to prove, brand by brand, plant by plant, that the empire built in 2021 wasn't assembled on a foundation that's already cracked. And that, right there, is the real story behind the Stellantis disaster nobody saw coming. Not one dramatic collapse, but 5 separate fires that all started from the exact same spark. A company that grew too fast, moved too fast, and forgot that dealers, factory workers, and everyday drivers are the ones who actually keep an automaker standing. If you learned something new today, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who care about this stuff as much as you do. And if you haven't already, subscribe to MotorZen and tap that notification bell, because we're covering every major shakeup happening across the global auto industry. And trust me, Stellantis is far from the only giant with cracks in the foundation. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Is Stellantis actually turning the corner with this Hemi comeback and the return to profit? Or is this just a temporary bounce before the next disaster hits? I read every single comment, and honestly, some of the best video ideas on this channel have come straight from you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm grateful you spent this time with us, and I'll see you in the next one.